Hi everyone, I'm Riley. This is Molly, Malia, and Garrett. We're working on our video essay project to investigate how Piedmont Park Conservancy practices conservation. Here we sit, confused by the multifaceted definition of this word. Before we visited the organization, we didn't expect it to demonstrate conservation. However, after thinking about our experience volunteering, we've realized that the Conservancy does embody conservation, just in a different way. Our work with the Piedmont Park Conservancy led us to consider an expanded version of the word conservation. More than simply protecting the purity of nature, as in the conventional definition, we came to see how conservation can be about providing people with a connection to nature, a community and a beautiful environment that allows them to enjoy their surroundings. Like most people with a traditional idea of conservation, we limited its definition to keeping nature untouched by people. This idea of conservation was inspired by nature advocate, mountain man, father of the national parks, John Muir. He said,
"Mischief makers of every degree from Satan to supervisors, lumbermen, cattlemen, farmers, etc. eagerly try to make everything tolerable, calling pocket-filling plunder utilization of beneficent natural resources that man and beast may be fed and the dear nation grow great."
Did you hear that?
Muir equates anyone who touches the environment to Satan. Someone who uses the earth's natural resources for any purpose is nothing but a scheming devil who plunders and steals from the earth to fill her own pocket. What do these harsh accusations imply? Muir gives us a definition of conservation, one that many people today believe is the only definition of conservation. According to Muir, conservation is the total separation of nature and humanity. We live here, and it lives there. In a toned-down version, we thought, conservation is maintaining the natural state of the land. With this idea of conservation in mind, we were skeptical about Piedmont Park Conservancy. It has the word conservancy in its name, but what does it conserve? Certainly not the natural state of the land. As we perused the Conservancy website, we found that the park was indeed initially a forest, until Samuel and Sarah Walker purchased the land for $540 and cleared the forest to farm. After that, the land was turned into a fairground and exposition space, and finally into the park we know and love today. This long-evolved piece of land obviously does not represent the pure state of nature that Muir describes in his definition of conservation. In Piedmont Park, there is no untouched nature left to conserve. So again, what does Piedmont Conservancy actually conserve? Let's take a closer look at the website. Navigating back to the home page, we noticed an emphasis on community events. Weekly farmers markets, an environmental summer camp, and luncheons crowd this month's calendar. Photos of laughing families and cheerful joggers fill the site, reiterating the park's function as a social, recreational place. We read about our volunteer event, Pull for Piedmont. It says online, volunteers will pitch in to clean up Piedmont Park for a half hour to 1 hour, and then cool off with some light bites and free drinks from Sprouts Farmers Market. Since the park doesn't actually conserve, and since it emphasizes community, we thought our volunteer experience would be more of a social gathering than a productive one.
Are they lying or are we wrong?
A traditional definition of conservation doesn't align with the purpose of Piedmont Conservancy. But through our experience volunteering, we came to realize that conservation can be about providing people with a connection to nature, a community and a beautiful environment that allows them to enjoy their surroundings. As it turns out, we need to expand our definition of conservation. After trekking through Midtown, we arrived at the site of our volunteer event. we approached a cloth-covered table outside of Magnolia Pavilion to sign in and collect our park swag. Equipped with gardening gloves and loppers, we quickly got to work trimming bushes while the rest of the group collected trash around the park. As daunting as the task appeared, we quickly reduced 2 overgrown plots of shrubbery to a neat layer of branches, packing the clippings away into really big paper bags. 23 bags in, the plots opened up and we could see the difference we were making. As the space opened up, we were also able to reach the trash littering the underbrush. Bottle caps, Coke cans, straw wrappers were almost in equal parts with the mulch. By cleaning all this up, we improved the aesthetic of the park. We also learned an invaluable lesson, as stated by a fellow volunteer.
Don't get naked in the park.
Don't get naked in the park. So how is trimming bushes a form of conservation? To answer this, let's turn to the writing of environmental historian William Cronin. In his essay, The Trouble with Wilderness, he says,
I often find myself remembering wild places much closer to home. What I celebrate about such places is not just their wildness, but that they remind us of the wildness in our own backyards, of the nature that is all around us, if only we have eyes to see it.
Cronin says the places that make us feel most connected to nature are the ones that make us feel close to home, the places that give us a sense of community. It's not the wildness of a place that makes it admirable, but the fact that it's in our own backyards, if we have the eyes to see it. Cronin plainly states that beauty, which to mirrors untouched nature, is a matter of perspective. We must have the eyes to see the beauty in our own backyards. As residents of Atlanta, Piedmont Park is our backyard, and any trace of nature we're able to find here is the nature we appreciate in familiarity, even if the nature is a manicured lawn or a cropped shrub. At the event, we work to conserve what makes us feel connected to nature, and as residents of a city, these bushes are all we have.
Soak it up, kids.
After all of the shrubbery was cleared and trash removed, we moved to the patio to enjoy some refreshments. Turkey wraps, a cheese plate, cookies, and wine. Although at first we couldn't see the connection of socialization and community building to conservation, talking with other volunteers quickly changed our minds. We could tell that some of the other volunteers were pull for Piedmont vets. There were many recurring volunteers who had clearly formed a community within the Conservancy. They seemed to know each other and were talented pruners. As we finished working, we spoke to fellow volunteer Isaiah. When asked if he felt he made a difference by volunteering with the Conservancy and pruning bushes, he said,
I think what we did, in terms of what we did, we made a big difference. It looks a lot better, and it was definitely a team effort too.
Isaiah felt good about the work he did for the park and was happy to be part of the community that the Conservancy fosters. It's because of this community that the Conservancy has recurring volunteers and people feel compelled to return. Without this community, the park would lose its ability to provide a connection to nature to its patrons, which is just the thing it's trying to conserve. Let's take a look at the Conservancy's mission statement to get a better understanding of what it's trying to conserve.
The Piedmont Park Conservancy, a nonprofit organization, is a member and donor-funded organization working in partnership with the City of Atlanta to enhance and preserve Piedmont Park as a vital urban green space and as a cultural and recreational resource that enriches the quality of life for all Atlantans.
Notice the mission statement mentions nothing about conservation of the environment or protecting nature. While the work that the Conservancy provides for its volunteers does preserve some elements of nature, that's not the organization's primary purpose. The Piedmont Conservancy exists to conserve community, and it does that by giving people work to do, enhancing the appearance of the park. As a result of that work, the park can be a place where people, if they let themselves, can feel connected with nature. To sum this up, the purpose of the Piedmont Conservancy is to provide a connection to nature for the people of Atlanta through a community it creates. For this organization, it's more important to conserve the community of the park rather than its nature. People who don't realize that might wonder why the Conservancy is called a conservancy. After all, the traditional definition of conservation, as described by Muir, means leaving nature alone and keeping our human hands off it. But, as our experience shows, the work we did at the park was not at all in line with this traditional view. That doesn't mean the Conservancy doesn't do a good job of conservation, though. As its mission statement goes, the Piedmont Conservancy strives to create a community, not to solely protect the environment. The object of the organization's conservation isn't the park, but the people coming to the park. It may seem hard to grasp, but sitting back and enjoying some wine and cheese in the middle of some well-pruned bushes is exactly the kind of conservation the Piedmont Park Conservancy strives to achieve. It doesn't want the people admiring the park for its natural beauty. It wants the people in the park engaging in its community, becoming a very part of the park. For those of us who side with Muir and believe truly beautiful nature must be separate from mankind, we have to step back and allow ourselves to see the beauty of Piedmont Park, even though it's cultivated and engineered to look how the Conservancy wants it to look. If we come with an open mind and involve ourselves in the community that the park works hard to preserve, we'll feel connected to nature, connected to Piedmont Park, and connected to the people who feel the very same way. That's the mission of the Piedmont Park Conservancy, and when people are willing to help them, it serves that mission well.